We got two questions that are actually very similar, but I'm going to go with Pamandla Pamo's question, which is again a pedigree chart, because you guys you seem to really battle with the pedigree charts, okay? But Lisa, spelled L-I-I-S-H-A with a little umlaut on the A, so I can only assume it's Lisa. I wish I had your guys' ingenuity and your creativity. I must find a way to write my name funny. Different. Okay, you've got a pedigree chart here showing Daltonism in a family, which is the red-green color blindness. Okay, and it's also sex-linked. So, Lisa, I'm not going to use your question, okay, for today, but please pay attention to Pamandla's question, because it is also a sex-linked question, and people, anything, any trait, I keep saying trait because it's so much easier to spell than characteristic every time, but any trait that is sex-linked has exactly the same process of actually doing the questions, all right? So whether they ask you about hemophilia, whether they ask you about color blindness, whether they ask you about, I can't even think of any others, any trait that is sex-linked, it is the same principle, all right? So here we go. The pedigree diagram below shows the inheritance of hemophilia. Okay, now hemophilia is, it's genetic, so you are born with hemophilia, or the hemophilia gene, and it's a recessive trait. So it has to be homozygous recessive, okay, or it has to be, because it is sex-linked, the male XY chromosome, it doesn't have a corresponding allele. So there's nothing to compensate for the hemophilia. And if the male gets that recessive gene on the X chromosome, he ends up with hemophilia. And hemophilia is your body doesn't have the ability to clot. So people end up bleeding to death. And a very famous family in the history of mankind was the Tsar and Tsarine of Russia years and years and years ago. And the empress, I think, emperor and empress, the empress had a son who was a hemophiliac. And she adored him. But there was a guy called Rumpelstiltskin, I think. I can't remember the history. But anyway, cut a long story short, she gave this guy, he was a total charlatan, and she gave him millions of pounds in gold those days to keep her son alive. Okay, and hemophilia was passed down the Russian royal line for years because of this little gene. Okay, your body cannot clot blood. So nowadays, we can fix it. But in the old days, no. If you bumped yourself, you could have bled to death. Here we go. Right. It's irritating me now. The Tsar and the Tsarina of Russia. I can't remember. You know, this is what happens when you get old. Okay, so here's our pedigree chart. You have our squares. Those are our males. And the circles are us beautiful, well-rounded girls. Okay, ladies. Right, down we go. That's one generation, first generation. Now this generation, they have quite a number of children. So we got a son, and we have a daughter, and we have a son, and we have another son. Okay, this looks very similar to the one we did just now, by the way. Okay, then this daughter marries a boy, and they have a lot of children. Clearly it isn't in nowadays when it costs so much. Geez, kids are expensive. I'm so glad all of mine are grown up. And now I can spoil my granddaughter. So here we go. And another one. And another one. And then this one marries this one here. Okay, so here's the first generation. Here's the second generation. And here's the third generation. So grandparents, parents, grandchildren. Okay, this is 1. This is 2. 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. All right, then this is 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. And you are colored, and you are colored in. Okay. I don't want to move up too much. Okay, so if it is a blank, that's a normal male. And a circle is a normal female. All right, and a square that is shaded is going to be your hemo. Hemo means blood, by the way. Hemophiliac male. And is your hemo female. Need space. Hemophiliac female. I'm not going to write hemophiliac out, that's why I'm putting dots there. All right, now, before you do anything, you look at your key, and based on your key, you back cross. So, for 1 and 2 to have 6 and 7, okay, they tell you, the alleles causing hemophilia are represented by XH, it's a recessive gene, see, and so that's the hemophilia. Okay, it's recessive always. And XH with a capital H is going to represent normal. So that's the normal allele and the recessive allele. And the hemophiliac allele. All right. Now, why XH and X small h and X big H? Because it is sex linked. Okay? It is sex linked, which means the alleles are carried on the X chromosomes, not on the Y chromosomes, on the X chromosomes. All right, now let's have a look. So, if they're going to produce 6 and 7, it means that 6 and 7 are going to be affected. So, they have hemophilia. And if they have hemophilia, what are we looking at? All right. Let me try and think how I'm going to explain this. Okay, so this child here is a boy. He's going to have XY chromosomes. And this is a boy, XY. Okay? This is a girl, XX, and that is XY. Now, for these boys to now have that hemophilia, and you can see the hemophilia, means that that is what their chromosomes say. Here, or this is what they are in the genotype, this little one here, the fact that she has it means that she has to be this. Why? Because hemophilia only comes through in the recessive state. But in a male, there is no allele to compensate. So that is why males end up with hemophilia. Okay, if we then look at here, that would be an XY with hemophilia, and that is an XY with hemophilia. So little h, little h, little h's, little h, little h. And mom and dad look normal. But if they look normal, what are we looking at? For mom, she doesn't have hemophilia. Okay? But look at this. How does she have children that have hemophilia unless one of these has the recessive? So there it is. And the male doesn't matter, because if the male had the small h, you would see hemophilia. So he doesn't. So Daddykins is XH. Mommy has XH and the recessive trait. Right, so now let's have a look at our questions. Where's my sheet? Question says, determine the phenotype of 4 and the genotype of 2. So phenotype of 4, you don't have to determine anything. All you have to do is look, and what do you see here? There is no hemophilia. So 4, we are going to say that, so this is question 1a. So individual, the phenotype is going to be a normal, and it was a circle, so normal female. Okay? Then for B, it says the genotype of individual 2. Now, look here. What would the genotype be of 2? We've already done it. How do we know? Because look here. If a cross between, or babies, not a cross, if 1 and 2 have offspring, and 2 males have are hetero, at least are have hemophilia, it means that that gene must have come from the mom. Because if the dad was, okay, then he would have had hemophilia. And hemophilia. He doesn't have hemophilia. Therefore, he must be this. He must be X, capital H, and Y. So that gene didn't come from dad. It had to have come from mom. And in this case, if it came from mom, well, she has to be heterozygous. Otherwise, she would be shaded, because if she was X, then she would have hemophilia. And she doesn't have hemophilia. Look, not shaded. She's normal. So she is X capital H, X small h. Okay, next question. Explain why females have a smaller chance of suffering from hemophilia. Well, people, obviously, how many X chromosomes do we have? 2. All right, so what you would say, let's take this up, let's get another color here. Okay, so what was this? It's question 2, and it's why do females have a less of a chance? Well, hemophilia, and I'm do this in shorthand. Hemophilia represented by a recessive allele. Okay, remember it's recessive allele because it is a little h. So that immediately tells you it is recessive, carried where? On the X chromosome. Okay, so it's carried on the X chromosome. How many chromosomes do females have? I mean, this sounds so logical. Females have 2 X chromosomes and need both X chromosomes to carry the recessive trait or the recessive gene. Okay, and then, okay, so she needs both. She needs two. So therefore, the female must be. Alternatively, you can explain that the hemophilia is represented by a recessive allele carried on the X chromosome. Females have two X chromosomes, so therefore both X chromosomes must carry the recessive gene, but in males, they only have one X chromosome, which means they are either going to have the dominant or the recessive. Okay, it's as simple as that. If they have the dominant, they're cool, they're okay. If they have the recessive, they missed. So females carry hemophilia, and a female can only be infected on the odd chance that she has the two X chromosomes. But now look at this. In order to be a hemophiliac, she needs two of those, which means her dad must have hemophilia. And if the father has hemophilia, well, you then have to do genetic counseling to see where you go from there. What's the next question? Represent a genetic cross to show the percentage chance of individual 13 and 14 having a hemophiliac son. So they want to know that if 13 and 14 have a baby, all right, what are they going to look like? Now we know that, look at this. This one, number 13, has to, because it looks normal. He must have XHY. Because if he had X little hy, he would be shaded. He is not shaded. He is nice and clear. Okay, folks? So it will be between 13 and 14. So what do we have here again? We have hetero crossed with a recessive homo. But it gets a bit more complicated. Why? Because we're using the XY chromosomes. So let's do our cross. Space, right. Okay, so we've got 13 and 14 have a child. So we start, oh, by the way, if we just look back up here, this is generation 1. This is generation 2. This is generation 3. So if 13 and 14 now have a baba, whether it's a little girl or a little boy, so I'll do it like that, because we don't know, okay, at this point, this is what our question is. What generation is this going to be? It is going to be generation 4. And if it's generation 4, this lot would have been the F1. This lot would have been F2. So what is this one going to be? Going to be the 4th generation, which will be F3. How cool is that? Okay, so now we go. So we start with, okay, it's going to be actually P3, okay, because it's a third lot of parents, and the third lot of parents, the phenotype, okay, we're going to have a normal male, because that's what we see. Go back. A normal male and a hemophiliac female. So normal male times a hemophiliac female. All right. Now, the genotype. Please look at the the method I'm using to write everything out, people, that is where you're going to get your marks. So don't think, oh, they know. They know nothing. Remember, and here's an exam technique. Always consider that the person who's going to be marking your paper, so whether it's your teacher, whether it is the head of department, whether it is a moderator, whether it is a chief examiner or chief marker or a marker for matric, always think of them as someone who is very intelligent, who is a very reasonable human being, and someone that you would probably like if you met them, okay? And they are intelligent. So don't write rubbish because you're just going to agitate them when they're marking your work. Write in a way that you are explaining to someone whom you like, who is intelligent, but that knows nothing about your subject. Don't assume they know anything. So if they ask you for 2 colors in a box of Smarties, don't say red, green, blue, yellow, orange, and purple. They don't want 5 colors. They only want 2. So only give 2 because they'll only mark the first 2 if they ask for 2. They'll only mark the first 3 if they ask for 3. They don't mark after that. It's rubbish. You waste their time. And when you explain something or when you set something out, set it out as if the person doesn't know what you are talking about. And that way you will make sure that you put all the necessary facts down. So here we go. The genotype. So the genotype of a normal male will be X, capital H, and Y. And the hemophiliac female, well, in order for her, if she had a capital H anywhere on her X's, then it would have cancelled out the recessive. So she must be homozygous recessive. All right. Now, meiosis takes place. And after meiosis, we end up with our gametes. So we've got the phenotype, the genotype, gametes. Okay? And the gametes are going to be XH and Y times X little h and X little h. All right. Then we draw our Punnett square, our 9 little blocks. Okay, here are our gametes. This is fertilization. Okay, so what do we have? Meiosis has taken place. We have our little gametes, and here we go. We're going to have the male. Or should we let's put the female first. So we go X little h and X little h, and the male X capital H and Y. Now remember, and this is just for you, just remember this. XX is female. XY is male. Every time there is a cross, we have a 50% chance that it will be female and a 50% chance that the baba is going to be a male. Every time. It doesn't matter if a person has 10 sons. Heaven forbid how you would raise 10 children. I think that poor person needs a medal. But 10 children, okay? Every single time that person has a baby, there is a 50% chance it will be male and a 50% chance that it will be a female. If they end up with 10 boys, wow, I don't know if that's good or bad luck. If they end up with 10 girls, well, they're happy because they're going to get a lot of lobola. Okay, but in other cultures, if they end up with 10 girls, they're going to pay for a lot of weddings. Okay, so I don't know which is better, but the chances are it's random. Every time you have a 50% chance of a boy and a 50% chance of a girl. It doesn't mean if you've got 4 children, 2 must be boys and 2 must be girls. Okay, I hope that sinks in. Right, now we have fertilization takes place. So we have X with a capital, always put your capitals first. and X with a little h. And we have X with a capital H and X with a little h, which means that these girls, this little girl here and this little girl here, are going to be heterozygous, which means they will not have hemophilia. And the boys are going to be XY and XY, but little h, little h. Oops, what do we see here? These poor little boys have absolutely no chance of not having hemophilia. Here you go. Look, little h, little h. Therefore, hemophilia. Okay, so finish our question. I need space. Up. So now, if this was the third lot of parents, what am I going to have? I'm now going to have F3, because it's the third lot of children. And the third lot of children, the phenotype, you don't have to put phenotype and then genotype. You can put phenotype or genotype. So it doesn't matter which order you put genotype or phenotype in. Okay, remember phenotype is what you are going to see, and genotype is what is in the genes. Okay, so the phenotype, what are you going to see here? It's easy. You're going to have two normal daughters. Okay, two normal daughters, there they are. Why? Heterozygous, and if they've got the capital H, the dominant gene or the dominant allele, they are fine. So two normal daughters, and we're going to have two, what? These little boys, there's the little h and the little h. That means we will have two hemophiliac boys or sons. Okay, so two normal daughters and two hemophiliac sons. All right, and if we look at the genotype, well, that's easy. All right, what do we have? The genotype here, because remember the question asked for the phenotype. So we've given two normal daughters and two hemophiliac sons. But I want to finish the question properly here and give you the genotype as well. Because you may get a question that asks you for both. So I'm just showing you how to write out your questions. And then genotype, because this is where you get your marks, your genotype is going to be 2 to 4 will be X capital H, X small h, and 2 in 4 will be capital X small h, Y. So that is 50%, and this is 50%. Okay, there you go. Done, done, done. Full marks. Just remember, if the recessive gene is there and the male has that recessive gene on the X, that's it. He's done for. Because there is no, look here, there is no other leg here. So there's nothing here to compensate that gene. And the same here, there's nothing here to compensate that gene. So therefore, the male will only have the one allele, and that one allele will then, that's it. That's the characteristic that will come through. Okay. And that the same will apply for color blindness. Okay, but color blindness, clearly they will, it's called Daltonianism, and what you end up with then is you'd probably have wherever there's a capital D, you're okay, and wherever there's a small d, well, if it's on the X chromosome, that's it, you're done. The males will have it. And that's why, ladies, most girls are not colorblind. It's mainly boys that are colorblind.